Before anything else, I want to be clear about where I'm speaking from. I'm not commenting on a scene I've left behind. I'm not observing from the sidelines. I'm still involved in the space in multiple ways, whether that's competing, organizing when necessary, creating content, teaching, mentoring, and writing. That involvement matters because what follows isn't nostalgia or theory, it's perspective shaped by continued participation across different eras and roles. There's a recurring issue I keep seeing, and it deserves a more honest framing. Fighting games were never a promise of stability or security at any point in their history, and what was offered was competition. Rules, events, and prize pools made available to anyone willing to participate. Nothing beyond that was guaranteed or implied. Choices like leaving jobs, ignoring the responsibilities, or tying personal stability to competitive outcomes were always individual decisions. No one was instructed to structure their life that way. When those decisions didn't lead to the outcome someone hoped for, responsibility often shifted outward. The narrative changed from choice to portrayal, even though the terms never changed. That shift doesn't alter reality, it just reframes disappointment. The conversation becomes even less grounded when the past is selectively reinterpreted. Some of the loudest voices insisting that there was never money were once deeply invested themselves. They funded events, supported players, added prize pools, and spent freely. People don't commit time and resources to something they believe has no value. What changed wasn't the past itself, but how it started being described later. Another pattern appears when discomfort is repackaged as insight. Games get dismissed when familiar habits stop working. Systems are labeled broken when long-standing comfort zones shrink. Competition is called unhealthy when it no longer rewards the same approaches indefinitely. That isn't analysis, it's resistance to change. This is where clarity matters. Styles didn't stop working. Zoning, defense, control, and methodical play are still viable. What changes is the expectation placed on the player. Modern systems compress decisions and expose stagnation more quickly. Relying on a single layer is no longer enough. Defensive players need better transitions. Control-oriented players need sharper confirms. Reactive players need faster adaptation. The issue was never the style itself. The issue was staying static while the environment moved forward. Choosing to not engage with that evolution is a valid personal decision. Stepping away is allowed, but opting out doesn't invalidate the system, and leaving competition doesn't mean competition failed. Those are separate things. Another distinction that often gets blurred is the difference between proximity and participation. Talking about games, discussing theory, and critiquing design are all relatively easy, but performing under pressure is not. Being near competition isn't the same as being accountable to it. When active participation stops but narrative authority remains, perspective naturally drifts. Over time, that drift affects how the scene is described and understood. There's also a modern content ecosystem built around visibility loops, recurring appearances, shared platforms, and constant reactions to others' takes. Content creation isn't the problem, building an audience is real work. The issue shows up when commentary replaces accountability and comfort replaces challenge. At that point, personal outcomes get reframed as systemic failure, and newer players absorb a distorted picture of what's actually happening. What often gets lost in all this is simple truth. Loving fighting games never required destroying your life. Competing never required abandoning responsibility. Legitimacy was never tied to recklessness. People have always balanced competition with real-world obligations. The idea that instability was a prerequisite came later, usually as a justification after the fact. I've stayed involved by adapting, not by clinging to old habits, but by adjusting to new systems and taking responsibility for my choices. The goal was never stubbornness, it was completeness. That's the difference between commenting on competition and living inside it. The fighting game community never promised anyone a future, it offered competition. What each person built on top of that has always been shaped by their decisions, their balance, and their willingness to evolve.